I am unashamed. What about you?
Welcome back to Unashamed. We've lost jolly old Zach to the motherland, to Great Britain. He's gone. We thought maybe we could get him to zoom in. He's supposed to be scouting a treasure hunting trip
for me,
for Jase. That was the whole reason. This is the whole reason we let him go. And we've heard nothing.
He went dark.
I
was on Si's podcast yesterday, and so somehow, it was.
That's a whole different atmosphere over there. It's kind of like a barnyard situation.
You know, it was a first though.
All the animals are there.
All the animals are there. There's a lot of clucking and noises, but
it's like Noah loading the ark.
That's what.
Come on, boys.
Very good illustration.
Exactly.
So we had Willie and I talked about.
So Willie was on too?
Yeah.
My.
The brothers were there together.
Oh my.
Somebody said it was the first time me, Willie, and Si have done a podcast together, which doesn't sound interesting to everyone listening. However,
I don't know. It sounds interesting to me.
I've done over 1,000 podcasts here.
Yeah.
And Si and them have done almost 500. So you would think that would have
crossed paths.
Of course, then we got into, Willie gets his feelings hurt. We realized what the problem was. Because Willie said...
Were y'all talking about his weight again?
No, we weren't talking about his weight.
No, we wouldn't let him talk.
Well, that was what it was. He said he came on our podcast the first time and just sat there for 47.
He said it was 44 minutes before he was
said
ever...
47.
Oh, now he said 47. Okay. Which they're only 48 minutes long, so... Well, which is kind of ironic, Si, because... me, you, and Willie were on Sadie's podcast last year.
Yep.
And it's the first time we had all been together on a podcast, and it was her podcast. So I guess you'd think there would be more opportunities for that to happen.
But my point was...
So did y'all have fun?
Well, we were talking about Phil and Kay and managing that situation, so I'm not sure you can
Yes, we did have fun because we laughed a lot.
We did laugh a lot.
And look,
well, that's going to happen.
Well, when you're dealing with a situation we're having to deal with, especially the kid, you need laughter is good.
It is, and it's kind of always been the Robertson way anyway.
Yeah.
I told Si when he got here this morning, Jase, that because we were talking a little bit about that as well, because we're going out, everybody's out one day or the other with mom and dad. And I said, Si, I'm just grateful. Dad was right. I'm grateful to God that you were born demented, so that we could get used to that.
That's right.
We've had 75 years of Si's dementia, and we know how to deal with it, Si. You're just fun. You're happy-go-lucky. It's fantastic.
Well, hey, the human race, I said it when I come in here, because getting ready for this, when I'm thinking about Jacob's ladder, okay?
I planted that seed in his head yesterday.
He
said, what are we going to talk about? I was like, well,
look, I got to think about it. I said, I've read it. I said, I've read it before. And I said, but I didn't think. I said, you missed the whole point. Okay? When God created the heavens and the earth, and he done that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is very important in my opinion.
Which is very important for us, okay?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about, hey, there's more to this, just this heaven and earth and our being a Christian. Because, hey, I'm already in the heavenly realms.
Because you have the Spirit.
Because I've got God's DNA in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jesus is there.
Yeah.
Saying he's there representing us. Right. So it's happening in real time.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what I got out of faith. It was said, that, hey, there are angels descending and ascending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In other words, they're going up and down the ladder of Jacob from heaven to earth and back. And so, hey, look, folks, there's things happening. Okay, on a daily basis. You just may not understand it.
You know what's funny about this is because all this came up because when I said I want to go treasure hunting in England because we have a lot of people that support us when we had a little duck show from England because I used to get letters.
Over there they call it Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
Dynasty.
Yeah,
Dynasty.
Yeah.
They don't say dynasty, they say dynasty.
That doesn't come out of a letter because I'm just reading.
Right. Well, if you could have heard it the way they were saying it, they were like, "Oh, we love that chap in Duck Dynasty."
Yeah.
So that's the way they would say it.
Well, I didn't
Just so
know
you
that.
know. Yeah.
But I was saying, I brought up Luke 15 because they were like treasure hunting. But they don't realize, and I kind of went through that England, they let you treasure hunt if you can get permission from somewhere.
Well, hey, treasure hunt is biblical.
Well, that's what I brought up.
Hey.
But I brought up Luke 15. You remember the parable of the lost coin?
Yeah.
But the point I was making aside of the heaven and earth thing is because when he says they'll be rejoicing
When
in
one
heaven
returns. Yep, when one returns.
over one sinner. Well, that's the first story about the lost sheep. Then it says, there's rejoicing on earth, obviously, because on the lost coin, she gathers all her friends and they throw a party. But then it says, in the same way, I'll tell you, there's rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And, same principle in the last story. But I just thought, that's kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven and earth are coming together in celebration over why Jesus was eating with mischievous characters,
Right.
tax collectors, and sinners. That's why he told the story.
Right.
Which is,
Yeah, that's what it was about.
well, you don't think about it until you kind of stop and do.
Well, no, because he had told you before. Well, how do I tell you about spiritual things in heaven when you don't even understand things that are on the earth that you can see?
Well, exactly.
How do I explain this to you?
Well, exactly. That's a good.
So, yeah.
That's a good verse.
So-
But that's a theme in the Bible about heaven and earth coming together. So, I mean, just to prove it, when we studied Ephesians, you remember Ephesians 1:10, he goes back to the beginning, kind of like John does. In the beginning was the Word was with God. So he does that in verse 4 of Ephesians, for he chose us in him, which that's a key phrase, before the creation of the world, which when he created the world, he said,
Heavens
first
and
thing,
the earth.
he created the heavens and
Yep.
the earth. Well, then he gets to verse 10, and it says about the times of all this, because it was a mystery, because they didn't believe God could be a man or would become a man from the Jewish perspective.
Right.
But he gets to verse 10, and he says this will be put into effect when the times reach the fulfillment to bring all things in heaven and on earth together under one head,
under
even
him.
Christ. Well,
Yep.
then he goes on in chapter 2, and he says, verse 6, which is, he made another mention of it when he said God appointed Jesus to be, placed him above all things. Yeah, verse 20, which he exerted in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly realms, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion. Well, in between those two verses I read, he had said we were marked in him in verse 13 with the seal, the promised Holy Spirit. So we get his Spirit. He's seated at the right hand. Well, then in Ephesians 2:6, it said God raised us up. Of course, now we're talking about our transformation from becoming outside of Christ to in Christ. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like he raised us up and seated us with him in the heavenly realms.
Well, you mentioned them 3 or 4 times,
Christ
maybe
Jesus.
5 times, something about time.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's what all of this is about. Okay? Time or the lack of time.
That's it.
Because, hey, with us, hey, we're going to be outside of time.
Yeah,
Which is his whole point, which, by the way, if you keep going, Jase, 3:10, his intent was that now through the church, the manifold wisdom of God should be known to the rulers and authorities where? In the heavenly realms, according to his eternal purpose, which he accomplished in Christ Jesus. So again, there's this idea of both realms, but Si's right, and then it's outside time and yet it's inside time. It's both.
So this is, important for Christians to realize. We're within time and out of time, okay, if you're with God.
So, Jase, we have a new sponsor, and it's called Pure Talk, and I just love their name. I mean, it's it's pretty much what we do, right? We're all about pure talk.
I mean, you want to have something that can help you just talk, we're your people. And Zach is really excited about it because he's actually already hooked up with them.
Well, I was in North Carolina with Zach when this hurricane hit. And I mean, like, everything goes out, and then it took them so long to be able to get coverage back. Yeah. And so Pure Talk was there, and that's what he loves about it. I mean, it's America's wireless company. Their CEO is a veteran who served a couple of tours in theater, so obviously we love that about them. These guys are a wireless company who believes in creating American jobs, which is why their customer service team is in good old Covington, Georgia. They're the most dependable 5G network, same towers, same networks as the big guys, but here's the key. Only half the cost. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 5 gigs of data for just $25. The average family saves over $1,000 a year on their cell phone bill. So you can keep your phone, keep your number, or you can choose from the latest iPhones and Androids. Zach has made the switch, and he loves it. It's easy, and he is now a proud Pure Talk customer. One of the reasons he made the switch to Pure Talk is because they help veterans. They've donated $50,000 to provide scholarships to support veterans learning trades after active duty. They also are helping eliminate veteran debt and raising donations to end veteran suicide. We love these guys, what they stand for. Just go to puretalk.com/unashamed to save 50% off your first month. Make the switch today at puretalk.com/unashamed and join America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
I made up a little skit I used to do when I was out preaching to people.
Oh, I got to hear this.
No, because, hey.
I mean, like singing and dancing skit?
No. I went to the doctor because I always watch television, and look,
Do you play this out on stage?
I played out on stage.
Okay.
Really. So I go
I've
through
heard the skit.
I go through my whole life talking about, okay, look, I was.
I've heard this skit.
Yeah.
You're calling this a skit that you act out?
Yeah, I actually did it, but it all goes with, okay, I went to summer camp, Christian summer camp, okay, and the whole time I was there for like 2 weeks, the only thing I heard was Jesus. Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus this.
While you were at summer camp?
Yeah, just over and over and over. Well, I finally opened my mind and said, well, wait a minute, let's see what are we talking about here?
Yeah, who is this Jesus?
Who is this Jesus, and why is that's all y'all are talking about? Well, then I got his story, who he is, what he's done, okay, and then hey, like I finally said, okay, the light bulb clicked.
Yeah. Okay,
I believe in this man named Jesus, okay, and then when I reenacted his death, burial, and resurrection, something miraculous happened.
You changed.
Okay, I changed. Okay, I became a new, clean creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and all because of one thing. I reenacted Jesus' real death, burial, and resurrection. And when I did, guess what? When I come out of the water, Jesus said, I have made you a new creation.
Yeah.
Okay, and to seal the deal on that, I'm going to give you part of me.
Yeah, well, this sounds like a sermon, not a skit.
Yeah. Well, hey, it is a sermon and a skit. But anyway,
okay,
it's a skirmin.
Hey, when you look it up beside,
yeah.
Okay, hey, I've got 3 DNAs. I've got Dad's DNA, Mom's DNA, and now I've got Jesus' DNA. Okay,
I like that.
And guess what? That gets me where I'm in time and out of time, babe.
And look,
I go either way.
My favorite time that I was with Si and he did this skit, we were at Auburn University in their basketball arena, and it was packed. I don't know if you remember this. There was 15,000 people in there. Si did his thing. It was so good. People were loving it. He said, and oh, by the way, let me tell you one other thing. When you let your little bird go, your war eagle, he said, he's landing right now at midfield.
Which is confusing.
He said, it's confusing me. He needs to land in the end zone so the football team will know where they're supposed to go. And everybody just roared. I looked at Si when we walked out, and I was like, did you just think of that? That was brilliant. It was the perfect way to close. He closed it with that, and they cheered us off. So,
you know what's weird? Which I hate bringing up poker stories because there's some. But we're in John 2, and where Jesus changed the water to wine.
Yeah.
So if I was ever going to bring one up, and I know how people hate poker stories, so I told Si last night.
But 2 out of the 3 people at this table play poker, so
we've gone here, and I haven't played. I've played maybe twice in months, and they took me off the list.
Yeah,
you know, you're either on a list, somebody has you on a list, which is do not invite.
And Si, I'm wondering why they took him off the list because he describes himself as studying for his podcast presentations. And then winning some money. I mean, that's it.
I did that
he's
last
the most
night.
Disengaged poker player
I was
ever.
literally reading the Bible last night at the poker game.
I can't imagine why they don't want
on my phone. And so, look, I made a play. Then we play this crazy game that Si has quit playing.
It's broke. It's broke, boys.
So you get 4 cards, but you're not going to believe what I'm fixing to tell you because it's exactly what we're talking about. I was literally playing with tax collectors and sinners because one of them is a tax collector.
And everybody's a sinner, including you.
You can't get away from them, boys.
So there was a big pot that there hadn't been too many huge pots, but there was a pre-raise. And even if you don't understand poker, you'll understand some of this. Well, as soon as what they called the flop, the community cards came out.
3 cards come out.
Yeah, 3 cards came out. They were all hearts. Well, there's 4 suits and a deck of cards.
There's a flush. There's a flush if you got 2 hearts.
So if somebody has 2 hearts, there's a flush. But it's a raised pot. So like somebody raised before, so the pot had swollen. Well, the first guy to act was to my right, and he didn't have a lot of money. He was what they call short stack.
That's right.
And so he goes all in.
I've been short stacked most of my life. So
well,
how do you get a big stack?
Look, in my mind, there was a king of hearts out there. There was an 8 of hearts, and there was a 6 of hearts. Well, I had the jack 10 of hearts, so I had a flush. But there's still 2 hands that could beat me.
Yeah, ace.
Somebody
ace.
could have the ace of hearts or the queen of hearts, you know.
Yeah.
So, but this guy goes all in. So in my mind, I thought he's probably got the ace high flush because he doesn't have much money. He thinks everybody's going to call. It's a complicated game because you got 4 cards, but you can only play 2. So you can play 2 of your 4.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I'll raise him because if anybody on the side, because you can only win what you have.
Right.
Because this guy's probably got me beat. I'm not folding this flush.
Yeah.
So I raised. Well, here's where it got tricky. When it got around to one of the other players, he re-raised me.
All in.
And I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah. He's got the ace. He's got the ace.
Why would he do it? There's
That's
been
right.
an all-in.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. I looked at my 4 cards, but I also have a king and a 6. Well, I told you what was out there. There was a king, an 8, and a 6. So even though I think this guy's got me beat, I have most of my money out here, and I do see a path to somehow get lucky if
get a
this
little
guy.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was like, if I hit a king or a 6, I can hit a full house.
Yeah.
Which beats
the flush.
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and I was like, call.
Go for it.
Well, the next card. So we all turned the cards over, and everybody immediately started grumbling because this guy had the ace high flush. I had the jack high, which is no good.
Yeah.
This first guy had 2 6s, which I hated because I need one of those 6s. There's no more 6s. I have one. There's one out there, and he has 2.
So kings are your only option.
I pretty much need a miracle king, you know. So here's what happened. The next card came out was a 10. Well, guess what? I have a 10 because I had the jack 10. So now I got some more possibilities, you know. But I'm like thinking I'm going to lose. And when you know it, on the last card, River, a king.
Oh, a king. Yes.
Not only do I have a boat, I have a barge. I have a full house.
He's barred.
Which means, look, all of the chips come in front of Jase. And boy, somebody who wasn't even in the hand said, well, that was a miracle. Well, that made me pause because that's a spiritual reference. And I said, no, you witnessed a transformation. Because I was thinking, I had a
nothing.
flush.
Yeah, I went from nothing to a
No, I had a flush that
Only
was not
Jase
good.
could turn it into
And
a
look,
biblical point.
Yep.
And I said, it transformed.
Into the hand.
It was a flush, like when somebody's embarrassed. And then it turned into a barge. And the barge was carrying all sorts of cargo that all the people
Needed.
Yeah.
Hey,
Was this helping? Was this helping the crowd?
They got angry.
Oh, yeah.
Grumpy.
Yeah, grumpy.
I got quiet because then I thought, I think they're really mad.
And I got to get out of here.
So
Oh, my goodness.
I was just going to say it seemed to fit because transformation, which is what John 2 is about. So I want to set this up. Think
It's
about
bad enough that you took my money. Now you're going
gonna
to
preach me a sermon about it.
Well, I thought
Now
about
you
it.
need to repent.
Look,
yeah.
I thought about this because it really helped me understand what we're talking about today. That program,
boy.
people's like, well, you're justifying it. I'll put some of it in the collection plate if that'll make you feel better. And I'll guarantee you this.
And Maddie wants her cut,
Yeah,
too.
he'll play Robin Hood for on your money.
And I will guarantee you this. I will not be invited back anytime soon. That was made really clear. Because when it got about 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like, look, guys, I got to go.
Oh,
Gotta go.
yeah.
So
Then
then
you short.
Yeah.
Speaking of time, then he's out of there.
I was like, look, I got to do some podcast tomorrow. I'll see you. Good luck to you.
God be with you.
So, Al, we're trying to eat healthy. I'd love to know, what is the latest home chef recipe that you've made?
Well, Zach, I'm glad you asked. Lisa and I I'm a big fish fan. I mean, I love fish, all kinds of fish. And so we got some fish. And so this was a almond butter recipe that was super fresh. You don't want to overcook that, so you cook it really quick. And then they also sent us some super fresh Brussels sprouts and some broccoli in there as well. Absolutely loved it. Felt good about it when it was over because it fit into my diet. So it was a fantastic meal.
Was it difficult to make?
No, very easy. Made it in about probably 20 minutes.
That's what I love about Home Chef. Most meal kits often market themselves as like an easy meal prep solution, but when you get it actually in the mail, it's a lot more difficult. I'm using this product as well. The recipes are super simple to make and they're good. Home Chef delivers fresh ingredients and chef designed recipes conveniently to your doorstep to simplify your cooking experience. And users of leading meal kits have rated Home Chef #1 in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. Al and I can attest to that. It's actually true. So whether you prefer classic meal kits with pre-portioned ingredients or the quick 30-minute recipes, oven-ready options, microwave meals, or a dedicated family meal, Home Chef has everything that you and your family need for a hassle-free, delicious dinner. Plus, it's economical. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners here at Unashamed 18 free meals plus free dessert for life and, of course, free shipping on your first box. So here's what you do. Go to homechef.com/unashamed to get your 18 free meals and free dessert for life. That's homechef.com/unashamed for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. You must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert.
But what I thought was, it really at that moment, because I was like, it's a miracle, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's a transformation. In that game, I did have that as a possible window.
Yeah.
Like the most famous
Hey,
poker player ever said.
Man's got to look at all his options, buddy.
That's right.
Besides, Doyle Brunson said one time, when the door gets shuts on you, sometimes you got to come through the window.
That's right. You got to sneak in the window.
But it made me think why this is the first sign, because he introduced this idea about this ladder and heaven and earth being somehow
Connected.
connected, which he is going to get into that in more detail,
it's
because that's temple language.
It gets heavy.
Yeah, and you say, well, what was a temple in the Old Testament? Which the temple is where they worship. It's where they meet they met God. So now just think about it. If you go back to John 1:14 and you say, well, when he said the Word who was with God in the beginning, he was with God and he was God. Through him all things were created. In him was life. It was the light of all men. Everybody's like, okay. And then all of a sudden, he became flesh. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling, which is their word for tabernacle, among us.
And that
So it introduced we used to meet God in the temple. And we had all these rituals.
I need to inject here. Okay, man-made. Okay, the temple was man-made.
Exactly.
It was where God dwelled.
That's right. But God told them to make it, and they did.
Yeah.
And
now, the tabernacle.
Now all of a sudden there's a man. Well, just think about this. Just take 2 steps back. It's going to be hard for me or hard for us to believe that God became a man. That's just kind of like it was hard to believe that I could possibly win this. But it was possible. But when you think about the verses that say with God all things are possible, and so I think to help us understand that, John goes back through some of his terminology, and I was studying this, which led me to kind of having this thought. When he got to John 1 and made this illustration in verse 17, for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And then it says, no one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made him known. Well, it made me go to think about that Exodus 33. Because look, do you remember Moses? I want to read this because I think it's kind of fascinating. So you remember Exodus 33, and the point, what was the verse about he was going to show his glory? When I read the verse 14, when it said, the Word became flesh, made his dwelling among us, we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So in Exodus 33, the Lord said to Moses, leave this place, you and the people you brought up out of Egypt, and go to the land I promised you. I will send an angel before you. Well, there's that, like what we were talking about. Yep. We have an angel coming from where? Heaven, coming to earth.
Yep.
So you're already getting this. So he gives them instructions. Now, I want to get to where I didn't make a notation of this. Let's go to like verse 7. Now, Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because that word, when Jesus made his dwelling, was tabernacle, which literally means pitching a tent. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrance to their tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of the cloud would come down and stay at the entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses.
And by the way, just to set that up, so the pillar, remember, had been above them the whole time they're coming out. So the idea was,
them.
the presence of God was there, but he was still far away. He was like above them. So that's the idea.
Yeah. So I'll skip down, and you can read the whole story in your own time. But he gets down to verse 14 of Exodus 33, and he says, the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Just think about that statement. So later on, when we get to the Sabbath, and
that goes
these
along
are shadows.
With Jesus is always with you.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in verse 15, Moses said, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all other people on the face of the earth? And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you have asked because I'm pleased with you and know you by name. Then Moses said, now watch this statement, now show me your glory, which I just read in 14, the Word became flesh, made his dwelling among. We have
And
seen
we've
His
seen
glory.
His glory. Yeah.
So watch this connection though, because I never thought about this before. In verse 19, and the Lord said, "I will cause my goodness to pass in front of you. I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion." But He said, "You cannot see my face, for no one can see me and live," which is why they would have a lot of trouble believing that God would become a man also. Because it's like, well, even if He had His face, you couldn't see it.
Right.
Because you wouldn't live. And so whatever, radiation, I'm using radiation. I don't know what
But he was glowing when he came out
The
of
power.
He was glowing.
The
So I was like,
power,
something
yeah.
is radiating.
The power.
So, but then the Lord said, "There is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory pass by, I will put you in the cleft of in the rock." We said somebody had a song about that, and cover you with my hand.
Mm.
But I just thought, why is He using that kind of terminology? And I think it's introducing, because that's where John is going.
No,
He just made a comparison to Moses, to Jesus. But you see this moment around the glory, and He's like, "You'll see my hand. I'll give you a glimpse." But it makes you think, well, God can do that. He's a transformer. He created the atoms and the molecules and the people. And I think that's what this miracle is going to be about, is getting your head wrapped around, okay, I mean, we'll read the story, but you have jugs or these ceremonial cleansing stone jars.
Yep.
And then Jesus transformed the contents of water into wine.
Which normally takes a long time.
Transformation.
Yeah, I was saying, you need to inject here. Okay. Making wine is a time-consuming, long time. Okay.
And He did
And
it.
yeah, all He did, He said, Mary had told him today, whatever this man tells you,
Do what He said.
do it.
Which I think is one of the key phrases in the whole thing.
It's really good.
Just take that. Most time I say keep the sentences in the context. But if you just live by that, whatever He says to do
it.
You need to do.
Yeah.
So one of the most, I would say, faith-inspiring things in my life, Jase, is, reading stories about martyrs for the cause. I mean, starting, of course, with the original group, but for the last 2,000 years, there have been people that have paid the ultimate price for the kingdom.
Yeah. The resurrection became real in people's minds when they realized the followers gave their life rather than deny Jesus was who He said He was.
Yeah.
So
I just saw 70 Christians were killed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo just this week.
Yeah, in a gruesome, terrible way. And that's the sort of thing, I mean, the evil one has definitely been trying to stamp out the kingdom of God in different ways. The Voice of the Martyrs, which is a fantastic organization that's been inspiring me for many, many years. I've shared it with their congregation and everywhere I go. Todd Nettleton, who is the radio host of Voice of the Martyrs, has written a new book, and it's right here if you're watching. It's called When Faith is Forbidden, 40 Days on the Front Lines with Persecuted Christians. And so what he does is like you're going on this journey through these restricted countries, and each step along the way, there's another story, kind of like the one Zach just mentioned, of amazing faith-driven bravery.
yeah,
To step up for the cause of the kingdom.
and He's offering it for free.
For free, which you can't, and you don't want to miss out because these stories are going to super inspire you. You can request your free copy of When Faith is Forbidden today, not only to be inspired yourself, but to support this fantastic ministry, which has really been on the front lines of persecution for many, many years. So here's what you do. Request your free copy of When Faith is Forbidden by calling 844-463-4059. That's 844-463-4059. Or you can visit vom.org/unashamed. That's vom.org/unashamed. Check them out.
he turned water. All Jesus told him to do said, "Hey, fill up to the brim with water." And he said, "Now take that to the man of the feast of the household. Take it to him and let him taste it."
Yeah.
And then the rest of the story is, well, wait a minute. Normally you bring out the bad wine
Yeah.
first.
And
You
then-
saved it. You've saved the best till last.
Yeah.
That's why I hear people that have read this and have talked about, it wasn't alcohol. Hey, come on, guys.
Well,
Don't-
a lot of
Don't start injecting stuff that is not true.
All right, let me say one thing, because there's a lot of people that love our rabbit holes. So Jase went to Exodus 33, which is an excellent point. For those of you who want to read that and then dive a little deeper, read 2 Corinthians 4, because Paul makes the exact same point Jase made in more detail.
Yeah.
And the key there is that Jesus was the only link to see the face of God, as it's explained in Exodus, and then also to be present to us. That's why he told the disciples, when you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
Well,
so finally, you can look into the face of God because of Christ.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing I didn't say, but even in chapter 34, in verse 6, it goes on to say, he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming the Lord, the compassionate, gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. And I'm saying, when you put all that together, you see the same terminology from John. He's full of grace and truth, love. That's going to be a common theme in the book of John. And he has this image where he didn't see him, but his hand came by. He was introducing this human aspect.
Right.
And he's using the word the Lord, pitching the tent, the tabernacle. All this is like Jesus fulfilling here.
Yeah.
In John 1, which I think is very
Which, by the way,
powerful.
one other thing, we skipped over the verse, but back in Exodus 33, there's a verse there that says, and Joshua, his aide, stayed in the tent when he came out. So the idea of mentorship and then preparing somebody for the next leadership, which Joshua was to Moses, is very important. He experienced that as well. Most people don't realize that Moses was the only one to be in that tent, but Joshua was there writing everything down at the same time, which is important.
Well, it's not just that scientific. I mean, I started just doing a search on the internet in the poker game of just transformation in general, because you even see the signs of it in creation, which I think the one that stands out the most is like a caterpillar going into a butterfly.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, look, I was reading, I mean, this person wasn't even a believer, but was basically going through that process with a lot of words I've never heard of.
Yeah.
But what I did find interesting when I was reading that process, because DNA came up, it's like, well, the caterpillar, now I'm paraphrasing, basically dies, but the DNA that was in the caterpillar
transforms into the butterfly.
Yeah, transform. Well, they use photosynthesizes or
Yeah.
whatever,
Well,
you know.
Yeah,
And-
but you got to think about this. The caterpillar inches along, just forever to get anywhere. And what happens when the transformation that you're talking about comes to play? Hey, he don't inch nowhere. He flies.
Yeah.
I like
He's
it.
gone from crawling at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
So, hey, he
Now
throws
he's
his
flying.
wings
And
out
with all this
and takes off.
beauty,
Yeah.
and I mean, if you just analyze 100 butterflies, I mean, I remember as a kid thinking, there ain't no way
Oh, yeah.
somebody didn't make this.
Well,
This is like art on
Yeah.
the backs of a wing that
Yeah.
came from something that's pretty pitiful, because a caterpillar is pretty pathetic.
Well, not only that, again, I have to go back to time. Okay, the time involved in all this.
Yeah. Well, Jesus just snapped his
Because
fingers.
and Jesus is the light of the world. He talks a lot about darkness, light, salt, all this stuff. All of it it all connects together.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me read it, and then we can dive more into it, because we've been talking all around it. So this is John 2. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. We've already said that was just maybe 4 miles from Nazareth, which is where Jesus is from, which would probably explain why his mom is there. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Dear woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "Here you go, Si. Here's your line.
Yeah.
My time has not yet come." And yet it really had. His mother said to the servants, which is an interesting response to that statement, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing,
20 to 30 gallons.
holding 20 to 30 gallons.
Yep.
Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. We got a lot of water. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." Now, I just want to stop for a minute just for a commentary. Can you imagine what these servants are thinking when they told him this? Like they just
they're probably giggling under
oh,
their,
they're probably thinking we're fixing to get we're fixing to get throttled.
Fired. Yeah, we're gonna get fired.
But they did it because Mary had said, "Do whatever he says."
Yeah.
And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. So that happened in the process here. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink," the old bait and switch. "But you have saved the best till now." So he gets a praise, from the host here. This, the first of his miraculous signs Jesus performed at Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory, to Jase's point,
Yeah.
and his disciples put their faith in him.
Okay, and now I need to go back in time again. Okay. This was like a week-long festival
Mm-hmm.
when a marriage took place
That's
back
right.
then.
It was a week long,
Okay.
which
so,
probably
hey,
went through a lot of wine.
Yeah. So you invited everybody
That you knew.
that you knew. So you're going to need some serious wine. Okay, because this is a week party.
Because remember, Si, this is not like we have pretty big weddings now, but this whole idea, this was arranged ahead of time. The couple had been betrothed, usually for a year or more.
For years, yeah.
They've been building a house somewhere to wait to go in together. So this thing is like a huge celebration of coming together. And the one faux pas that you could ever have is to run out of food or wine.
No.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Because
That's why
hospitality is big it's still big in the eastern region.
That's why when Mary talked to Jesus about, "Hey, why do you bother me with this woman? My time is not, and
Which that struck me, Si, because, Mary, it doesn't say much about Mary. You don't see her. This is one of the few times she pops up.
I think she's only twice at the cross and here.
And the one where the brothers, remember that time they came to see it. But most of the time she hasn't been seen. But obviously, those verses early that says she pondered these things or treasured them in her heart, she knew something was going on. Because why would she say whatever he
But you know when you're a virgin and you give birth.
Well, exactly.
Something.
Because nobody knew for sure except her. Joseph went because the angels told him.
I've heard people debate that, and I'm like, okay, you know.
Yeah, but
you're like,
she
hey,
knew. She knew.
Everybody else is thinking.
Yeah, right.
I bet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is what we would say today, right? We would say, okay.
Well, I'd roll my own.
Yeah.
I don't remember how they worded it, but Mary said something to herself like she knew. She asked Jesus about this. Is it?
I think it's implied because obviously she was a virgin.
Yeah.
And I think she realized how ridiculous this request was, but she didn't want the embarrassment. Also,
so she was thinking about the man of the house, and what it would do.
Right.
This would be a crushing thing for him to.
It would be the biggest embarrassment.
I'm one to think that when she said, "Do whatever he says," that probably came after them saying, "You want us to do what?"
I know they had to question
the
it.
redneck inside of me.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I've been gathered around.
When
a
you show up with some water when they've called for wine, that would be in our day a fireable offense, in their day much, much worse. Yeah. So whatever is going to happen.
I think these stories, we're so familiar with them, we don't realize how ridiculous it would really be to real people, which is why I'm thinking John is carefully saying, why God has these shadows in life for you to wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up the butterfly. It's like,
Well,
what a creature to make.
well, no, because
We take it for granted because you've seen a butterfly and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this person I'm listening, droning on about the science of it all, which is awesome. But I'm like, you only believe this because you know it happens. If somebody tried to introduce this and you'd never seen it, and you'd say, okay, look, if you've never seen that transformation, you'd say, now I'm going to turn this caterpillar and just put the most spectacular butterfly you can find. I'm going to turn that into this.
Yeah.
Well, no sane person
would say no.
would say no.
Yeah.
You'd probably say maybe because you're not all sane. But that's basically why God, I think, set this up for us. So we're like, okay, so you're telling me that you have a plan here.
Well, he's told us, like I'm talking about, that's why, like with God, okay, with us we're limited, but with God everything's possible.
But it's why we also should be open-minded.
Yeah.
So I want to make this point because this was something interesting when I did research to your points about my time has not yet come. My first thought about what Paul said in Galatians 4:4, when he said, when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of one, born under the law. You remember that passage?
Yep.
So there's this idea that there was an appointment of time for us.
Well, that goes back to the Ephesians 1. When the fulfillment. But also in the Galatians 4, he also says, which is, there's not too many passages that says this, that he gave us the spirit of his son.
Right.
And that's why we're talking about when I first read this, because look, I've never been drunk in my life. I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes and done sins like everybody else, but that's one I haven't done.
Right.
And it makes people uncomfortable because I say, hey, this was real wine. And because I'm like, look, this is the one thing I don't have a problem with. Right. However, we came from a group that that this kind of stuff would come out. They're missing the beauty and the power. Because I think this is even. If
you approach this text by wondering whether it was alcohol or not, you've missed a big point.
You missed the whole thing.
But it's kind of like God one day is going to throw a party. And I really believe this is a shadow of us being married to Christ. Right. I think that's why he did it as the first sign.
As a wedding.
And you're going to have all this transformation, all this newness. And I really think that is what the wine is all about. It's like new wine. You remember the parable he told about you can't put new wine in old wineskins. For years, I would think, why is he saying that?
Because the power.
What's he talking about? New wine. Well, when you start talking about new creation, which is what he's introducing.
Yes.
Here. He's talking about people being transformed into new creations.
All right, so let me share this with you, Jase. This is going to prove the point you just made. This is something I didn't know till I got into the study this time. 5 times this phrase is used. My time has not yet come, by Jesus, or about Jesus, because John used one of them. One of them is here in our text. There's 3 in John 7. John 7:6, 7:8, 7:30. That's the context, you remember, where the brothers told him he needed to go up to the Feast of Tabernacles, and he was like, no, my time has not yet come. And they were like, oh, you need to get out there and, if you're going to be a man of the people, you got to show yourself. They were the marketing director. And he's 3 times, he says, in that context, my time has not yet come. And then again in 8:20, remember we get into John 8 is where they were questioning him, who gave you the authority? He said, my time has not yet come. Listen to this. There's 3 times later in John where he says the time has come. The first one doesn't start until 12:23. The second one is 13:1. That was with his disciples when the night before, when he was washing their feet. And then the last one is 17:1 where he was praying and he said, my time has come. Guess what happened before that language changed with Jesus? All 7 of the miracles that John talks about. And guess which the last one was? The raising of Lazarus from the dead. Mm-hmm. Which was the pinnacle sign that God had now come to defeat the very power of death, which Jesus would later do. So that's really interesting that the language Jesus uses goes right up to that point. through John 11, and then all of a sudden it says, my time has come.
Well, I think in Ecclesiastes, it says there is a time for everything.
Oh, it does say it many times.
Yeah.
And it goes into detail. There's a time for death. There's a time for life. There's time for news. It goes on and on. And that's why I said all of this we're studying about here is connected with time, and it's the earth and heaven, and it's all connected.
Exactly.
With us. God has connected everything. He's connected all the dots through his son.
So listen to this, guys. So it's the power. So this is the power over this idea and this situation and transformation, water to wine. Listen to the 7 signs. I'm just giving to you quick. In chapter 4, it's the power over distance. It's where he healed the guy. And you just said, oh, yeah, he's ready.
The guy said, hey, look, you don't need to go.
You don't have to bring him. I don't have to go there.
Yeah.
Second, the third one was the guy at Bethsaida in chapter 5. That was power over disease. No disease was more powerful than Christ.
The great physician.
So then in chapter 6, it was the feeding of the 5,000 and later another 4,000. Yep. So that's insufficiency. We can't take care of ourselves. He said, I'm bigger than that. Then he walked on water and calmed the storm in John 6. That's power over nature. Anything's out there, I made it. So if I tell the winds to stop, they stop.
Well, no, because they know the Creator.
And then listen to this, John chapter 9, the 6th one was the man born blind, and that shows you the power over sin. Because remember, they were saying, who sinned, this man or his parents? And he's like...
Which, by the way, is mentioned in Exodus 34, because when I read verse 6, 7 I didn't read because, sometimes you read a verse and you're like, ooh, because it says he will punish those who don't trust him or bow down to idols. Right. And then it says their children's children. It's like a legacy because they're worshiping idols.
Right.
Which is why they got the idea of, well, who sinned that he was born blind? Because they were familiar with these passages. Right. With us, we're like, why are they thinking that? Because it's in Exodus 34 in this promise.
Yes.
Which goes back to if God wants to dwell with people, if he wants his presence to be with people, which is why I read that 33 and 34. Well, now Jesus is present with the people.
Yeah.
He has entered the arena. So what has to happen for us to be able to dwell with God? At some point, we've got to be able to live longer.
Yeah.
Something new has to happen.
That's it.
Which is then we're getting back into why he gave us his Spirit. Of course, this is an analogy because we don't want to make light of people who do struggle with alcohol.
No.
And I've turned to this verse when people have sat down, they're like, well, it just bothers me that, somebody's drinking and I have a problem and I don't need to drink. And I'm like, well, you need to think, wait for the new wine. It's not going to be actually wine.
Yeah.
But it's better.
Right.
Because that was his illustration. There's a new creation that's going to form, and that desire you have needs to be concentrated on Jesus himself. And we are going to have a party. This is a feast shadow of us celebrating as the bride of Christ in eternity.
Right.
And it's a part. Who doesn't like a party?
And look, the bottom line is, as believers, we have to look at it and say, look, because I have a weakness in a certain area, I'm going to remove myself from that because it's not good for me. I could say the same thing about cheeseburgers. The reason I'm on a diet is I got a weakness for cheeseburgers.
Well, exactly.
But I'm not going to resent Si for eating a cheeseburger. I'm just going to say, brother, you enjoy that. I'm going to go over here and fix me some veggies.
Well, it's more about you because there's nothing wrong with wine.
Exactly.
He didn't have a 3-point deal here on where, now don't drink too much because that's a sin. But we tend to look at the Bible as this is to me rather than for me, and that's why he uses these pictures.
But to your point,
Jason,
I grew up hearing sermons that included this text that never dealt with the beautiful picture in the text.
Zero.
Because it was always about what it wasn't really happening or what was
what
really.
It didn't
That's
say.
why most people have got God as of someone up there with a big hammer and just waiting for you to mess up.
No, Missy
like
said,
a big fly swatter.
Yeah, and that's just the opposite.
Yeah, Missy
Okay,
said
look,
this
he
yesterday.
wants to be with you. He wants a relationship between you and him. It's personal, guys.
Missy was having a Bible study and she was telling me, because she knows I use that illustration a lot. I'll say, close your eyes and picture God. What do you see?
Yeah.
well, most people see nothing. And she said the women, the number one answer was old man with a gavel, in a judge lake. And she said one person said Jesus. And she said, well, that's the right answer. But what then you get into the comedy aspect of it's not Jonathan Rumi of The Chosen, but that tends to be where we
in
go.
our current era is what it tends to be. So Simon, you came in here today and sat down. The first thing you said was, boys, what we're talking about today is about time. So I got to tell you, we're out of time. How fast did that go?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, but I love coming here and being on Unashamed.
Yeah.
Because I always learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was, okay, look, there are angels descending and ascending between heaven and earth all the time, and it's on our behalf.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The Almighty has sent them, for crying out loud.
And I'll say this to close. In the next afterlife, where we're imperishable, new bodies living forever.
Outside of time.
Because that last sign, by the way, was defeating death.
There are no alarm clocks.
We have eternity to enjoy.
No need.
So it's always a pleasure having you on Unashamed.
It always, I love coming on here.
Awesome.
Because we actually open God's Word and actually learn something from it.
There you go. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.